Welcome to the Bias Buzz, powered by Accuracy and Media. I'm Don Irvine, and he's Brian McNichol. Top of the news, obviously, today was coming right off the New York primary results. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have they won both of their races in really effectively landslides, and widened their leads over their opponents on the delegate race. So now Trump is firmly in command. He now has about a 300 delegate lead. But it's not over. Trump has said that Cruz is pretty much mathematically eliminated from the race. That's true and false, I guess, depending on how you look at it. If you're just looking at it based on the standpoint of the remaining delegates there are left in the pile, it would be almost impossible for Cruz to get enough. You need 90-something% of the remaining delegates, and Trump needs maybe 58% or something like that. But what's not really being factored in yet really are the Rubio and the Kasich delegates and where they will go. If most of them, as we've said before, if they move to Cruz, it's a different race. And I also have this feeling, Trump wants to put this away. I don't think they put it away yet. Basically,
I don't think they had. I don't think a whole lot changed. He won his home state just as Kasich and Cruz did before him. He won by big margins. People will say the New York values thing hurt Cruz. I don't know how many people in New York said, I was going to vote for Cruz, but after he said that, I'm switched, because they're different kinds of people. They're appealing to different constituencies and so forth. He can't get his challenge to get to 1237 did not grow or decrease in magnitude over what happened yesterday. And he's, the race goes on. They're both still alive, and you're right. The Rubio still has a card to play, and eventually Kasich will too. I think what we are learning is it's not going to be Kasich. There's none of this reach for the common third ground momentum that he hoped for.
Right. And I think that's true. Kasich is still holding out some kind of quixotic hope that he's going to ride in on some white horse and that everybody will say that, we don't want Trump, we don't want Cruz, they're being rejected, and, they'll go to him.
The distant third guy.
The real distant third guy. And as you said, New York values, I don't see where the argument really was that. I think the Cruz's people knew that New York was going to be a tough road to hoe. This was going to be Trump's territory by far. He didn't really have much chance. He didn't spend a lot of time in New York. He didn't invest a lot of time in New York. The results, came out that way. But none of those results yesterday, whether or not it's on the Republican side or Democratic side, really surprised me. And I don't think they should have really surprised anybody in the end. They came out pretty much as they should have. Trump gets, I think the morning count was like 89 delegates and 3 for Kasich, and there are like 3 that haven't been decided yet. Cruz is getting 0. He probably won't get any of those remaining 3 anyway. Kasich, if he gets a couple more, that'll be great for Kasich. But it doesn't change anything, I think, as you said before.
And I think Cruz is doing in New York what he has done elsewhere, which is he is trying to the people who are actually those delegates who actually go to Cleveland. You're bound to Trump for one vote in New York, right? One round. So. On the second round, the Cruz is already playing this. If he doesn't, if Trump does not get to 1237, it's going to be about winning it on subsequent rounds. Which he's there was an analysis on Red State this week that he's way ahead, way over the 1237 to do it. The guy said he's virtually certain that Cruz will be the nominee. I don't know that I would say virtually certain yet, but that's what they said.
Yeah, in this race, nothing is a certainty. Everybody's crunching numbers. We're hearing all kinds of things, I think, as a result of that. Everybody's trying to figure out what the rules process is really going to be. Obviously Trump has been complaining about different things. They haven't been very accurate necessarily either in calling about some of these things rigged processes. They had kind of the Florida thing. They had that kind of all mucked up. The Trump delegates, as I understand, they're bound to Trump for about the first 3 rounds. So they're not going anywhere. It's going to be tricky, but we've talked about this before, on previous podcasts, which is just that the ground game, this is where Cruz is excelling. He is laying that groundwork. I think what you said about Red State is probably where a lot of that's coming from, is that he's putting in place the opportunity, should Trump get to the convention and fall short of the delegates, which is highly likely, that as they go through this process, that even though he might say he shows up with 100 fewer delegates than he needs to lock in the nomination, there's no guarantee he's going to be able to sway enough to get over. And if they have to go to the second round, a second ballot, and people are being freed up, Cruz is going to have a huge advantage. And I don't think the Trump people, they ever thought that far ahead initially. That wasn't in their planning. They thought, okay, we're just our momentum. We have all this stuff. People love what Donald is saying, and therefore nothing else matters. He's going to be able to crush all of his opponents, and he may be disappointed, but who knows what that'll mean to the party.
He's been a 30,000-foot candidate, right? He comes in, has a big rally. The pictures go out of him in a big stadium full of people and so forth. Okay, but Cruz has done what is the traditional work of campaigning. They've been far more thorough in every state. They spent money on organization, infrastructure in every state. So the other thing for Republicans to think about is, when you go to the general, who has an organization stood up in each state ready to start functioning on day one? And the answer is not Trump. He's not been thorough. These guys he's hiring now, their purpose is to let's build a department of being thorough, and they haven't had that before, and now they're in trouble over it.
Right, and I think Maryland, where we're broadcasting from and where I live, is a good example of what happens on the grassroots level, or what is happening. We had an opportunity as the Republicans in Montgomery County this past week, just a few days ago.
All 7 of you.
Well, there are more than this. We actually managed to get a room full of people, but at our headquarters building in Rockville, we served as a remote audience for a Good Morning America town hall with Ted Cruz. Now Senator Cruz was in New York being interviewed basically by George Stephanopoulos and Robin Roberts, and there was a live audience there. But we were one of 3 remote audiences around the country, 2 of them being in New York. And so the audience was comprised of the Cruz supporters, the Trump supporters, and the Kasich supporters. But when it comes down to the grassroots, in Montgomery County, where I live, and throughout Maryland, there is a Cruz crew or a Cruz organized effort. Kasich actually has some things going on, but actually one of my friends who's involved with that thinks that they haven't coordinated very well between, say, the PAC and the campaign about certain things, but at least they're present. Trump is opening up a headquarters, or he has maybe opened up a headquarters, in Maryland, but he's not really focused on the grassroots. So, if with Maryland being in play as well as other states, these delegates, whoever they will be, we have our primary next Tuesday. We're in early voting now, or finishing up early voting. After that first ballot, who knows? I mean, you may see that shift, and that Cruz has got these people kind of wrapped up. So it'll be very interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's also in a place like Maryland, for Cruz, it's a matter of holding down margins. And there's some places in Maryland he can win some votes. Western Maryland, Frederick area, some people on the Eastern Shore. There's some conservative folks out there. It's not as impossible as it seems. I mean, obviously, Trump will be a favorite probably in Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, but it's just a matter of keeping those numbers down, staying within reach now. Because if you stop him short of the goal line, and Trump's attitude is, well, if I'm just a little short, then you should give it to me anyway. And no, they should do what delegates at conventions do.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, there are a lot of pundits out there saying, like, well, if Trump gets to 1,100, if he gets close, he has to get the nomination. Otherwise, it'll be ruinous for the GOP. My attitude is that the number is 1237. You get there or you don't get there, and that's it. I mean, it's pretty clear. None of this little mealy mouth, whatever. It's like, well, he's close, so the others you should go for him because he's close.
Yeah, you're arguing you deserve it. You deserve something from the Republican Party.
Is an entitlement?
What?
Yeah, it sounds like an entitlement to me. And so yeah, it'll be very interesting to see. Flip quickly to the Democratic side. Hillary just pretty much wiped out Bernie in terms of the votes yesterday, though she's still lagging on that youth vote. That's still kind of a major thorn on her side. The interesting thing, as I decided to look at the math a little bit, is just when it comes to the number of delegates, they're not that far apart. 1421 for Clinton, 1150 for Sanders. It's that super delegates that have been mentioned before. Hillary's got 464 and Bernie's got 40. The Sanders campaign says, well, we're going to fight through the summer. We're going to try to flip some of those people. I don't know how they're going to do it. But I think one of Sanders' goals in this is to try to get rid of or change the superdelegate system so someone like him coming up in the future has an actual legitimate shot. The superdelegate thing is easily going to be the tipping point for them.
It's happening on both sides. I mean, the Republicans have different words for it, but it's the same thing. It's like at the end of the day, the popular vote means something, not nothing, right? But the poobahs are in charge here, and they're saying, as crazy as this year sounds, a lot of things that are happening are fairly traditional, and that's one of them. Is as this gets closer and realer, so to speak, the parties are asserting control.
Right. The establishment is firmly in control, though a lot of the voters that's not what they want anymore. So we'll kind of see how that goes.
She's also the Cruz of the Republican side in terms of she's better organized, and Sanders is the Trump. He flies in and has big rallies, the grassroots stuff. I mean, the Clintons have been at this a long time. You read David Marinus's book about Clinton, the first in his class. He talks about whenever they went to somebody's house, like some political operative, right? First thing they would do is he had this big thing of index cards he would carry around. And he would plop his down, and you would plop yours down, and you'd go through and make sure that everybody had both, trade. So he had all these contacts. He's been a contacts list guy. He says he sent 2 emails, but he's been building Rolodexes for a long, long time, and they have big Rolodexes. And that's something that, as popular as the ideas of Bernie are, it's impossible to overcome. Just the thorough state by state, town by town organization that the Clintons have built.
Well, I look at the Clintons as kind of a machine, a democratic machine, just like Chicago politics.
Right.
If you were in Chicago and you tried to run against the Chicago Democratic machine, you were probably going to get crushed. I mean, they were better, well-organized, financed, and a few other things that, in terms of whether or not they were all above the law, that's a whole other matter there. But, the Clintons have been in politics for a long time. They are very well organized. I think, politically, they're pretty good. Bill is far superior on the political stump than Hillary is, and can be an asset, down the line. But it'll still be interesting to see how this all plays out. I mean, the Democrats are worried that Sanders' attacks are sticking. They have
they're
stung.
telling him to play nice.
Yeah, they do. They do
you
want.
Be kidding me.
Yeah, they don't want to see it happen to what happened to the Republicans, is that they beat each other up and leave the other side, with the advantage. So right now we kind of really have both sides beating each other up, and we're not really quite sure who we're getting in the end.
I want to make one point over one thing you said about the youth vote. I remember in 2012, we really didn't know who was going to win on Election Day. It really was. The polls were so close, people just did not know. I woke up that morning, the first thing I saw on Twitter was long lines at all of Virginia's college campuses. Long lines to vote. And I'm like, dead. Obama wins. Because you do, they're not there to vote for Romney, right? And now those long lines, if Hillary's the nominee, they won't be there either way. They're not going to line up there for Cruz, and they're not going to line up there for Hillary. So it's not that Republicans will gain a lot of votes, but Democrats, it'll be like a midterm election, and you won't have that passionate roll up the numbers type of vote that you have during that you had during the 2 Obama elections.
Right, and I think even though Hillary's doing well with the minority vote, they are not likely probably to be quite as passionate either in coming out as they were under Obama. So I think even though she wins a majority of that, and Republicans were going to do poorly with that group anyway, no matter what, the only reason I can see the minorities coming out it really is kind of the anti-Trump, that they're so mad at Trump for what he said about the wall or other things, that they would come out and do that. But I don't see that as enough of an impetus to get people to come out necessarily and vote against Trump.
There's not a lot of states where that's decisive. I mean, there used to be, but it really now at this point, you can win a big swath of the country without it.
So we'll see how this goes. And then this week we had a new NBC Wall Street Journal poll. Hillary's lead was down to 50 to 48. So that's within a margin of error. That's a very tight race, but in all eventuality, as we've talked, the thing is that she's going to wrap this thing up pretty soon. She only needs about a third of the remaining delegate votes to capture the nomination. But I just heard Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She was asked a question just now on Fox before we came in here about whether or not Bernie should get out, and she actually said she thought he should stay in essence. And I think part of that is because she knows that he's not going to get the nomination. I think she feels confident he won't get the nomination, so she doesn't mind him hanging around as long as he plays nice.
Well, the other thing is they need a little insurance because you still have FBI investigation, Benghazi investigation, the other email investigation. There's 4 investigations of Hillary's conduct. So if any of that blows up, you may need a candidate, and they're like they talk about airdropping the vice president into it, but who's lining up to vote for him? Whoever lined up to vote for him, right?
Right.
I mean, his 2 campaigns went straight. The other thing about Hillary is this is her popularity trend, right? Every election, it goes down. The closer you get to the vote, the fewer people want her to win.
Right, and you look at him. I've mentioned this before in terms of the favorability rating. So Sanders is the most popular out of the 4. Where I'm discounting Kasich at this point, and by a wide margin. I mean, 2012, Romney and Obama, their unfavorables were in the 40s, 43, 44%. When you're looking at Hillary and Trump and Cruz, they're like 60, 65%. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's kind of what are voters left to choose from? When it come down to it, they're saying we really don't like any of these people, and yet we've got to vote for somebody. That's probably because we need a president.
There are a lot of people that are just disgusted with the whole thing.
Yeah,
a big mass of people, and I don't know where they go because they're the people they're being offered are not people you can settle for. You can't settle for if you're on the conservative side. You cannot settle for Hillary. If you're on the other side, you cannot settle for Trump. Half the conservative movement cannot settle for Trump. It's like we talked about the other day. You have large blocks of both parties saying, if the leader for their nomination ends up getting their nomination, they refuse to support that person. That's unprecedented in my lifetime. I've never seen that.
Right. So now I want to move on to just talking a little bit about what I think was a brilliant move by the Sanders people this past week. They showered a Clinton motorcade going to George Clooney's residence for a $350,000. $353,000. Was it per couple?
What is up with that?
Is that per couple?
Yeah.
So fundraiser for Hillary. I mean, I don't know where you pull that number out anyway to begin with, what that represents. But they showered that motorcade with dollar bills, trying to make a point of, she's in the cahoots with all the big money, Wall Street, whatever. And I thought it was just a brilliant stroke. It doesn't really move the needle, but I don't think it got enough press attention either.
No, I don't think so either. He's pretty good, political stunts guy. There's somebody back there. There's some dark force in the back of the Bernie Sanders campaign bus who's coming up with some old-timey political tactics. It's been interesting to watch.
So that may be the only time I praise Bernie Sanders. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. The other thing I want to get into here, too, is with regard to this is Hillary and her Wall Street speech transcripts. So this has been an ongoing thing with her, is that she has been holding firm about not releasing them, though she did, months ago say that she would release them when everybody else did.
Right. Making demands of candidates in the other party. That's
right,
pretty sure. Don't you say, I will release them when the sun stops shining. Okay, if we could just get that sun to cooperate, we can see the transcripts.
Yeah. So here's my problem, and what I've written about on this is just that she's all wet on this. She's wrong because the thing here is that Senator Sanders and Senator Cruz, they're barred by Senate ethics rules from giving paid speeches to begin with, and the chances that anybody on Wall Street really wanted him to speak for anything in particular, probably slim. Trump. He doesn't need to give a paid speech. I don't know if he has ever given a paid speech or he's even really spoken in any kind of group setting to a Goldman Sachs or anybody else on Wall Street. I can't imagine Kasich having much to do with that, especially since he's been out of Congress for so long. So she's going after and trying to set this thing. Now, when she had this interview this past week with George Stephanopoulos on ABC This Week, she said that she was going to do it when they met the standard, and she basically admitted it was her standard. She was setting the standard for the release of these transcripts, and yet she's got Senator Gillibrand saying, well, she should release these transcripts. There are people saying you ought to release them, and she's still holding firm. So what is she hiding? She obviously is hiding something if she just continues to be this obstinate about this.
Well, there's some stuff out there about what the speeches said, and what they said is, you, Goldman Sachs et al., whoever else she was speaking to, and we are partners in solving this problem. And your role is important, and our role is important, and we need to have cooperation and work together. Bernie has, to the people who are worried about whether they want to vote for the candidate least aligned with Wall Street, are not voting for her anyway, right? So she gets them out. Now it just looks like the problem is with Hillary, it looks like the instinct is always to hide it. Think about this. The day she got in office, she said, let's put a private email server in my house so that I can evade FOIA. It doesn't, whether she gets indicted is almost not even the issue, right? The America knows, she took the first opportunity she could to take her conversations that are supposed to be public documents offline, right? Hide her stuff. Now, here's another thing, give them the speeches. Everyone knows what it says. There's people out there who were at the speeches saying, here's what she said. Okay, so it's out there. Okay, you praised Wall Street. You said they're important to the economy. They are important to the economy. It's kind of, I would say, hey, Bernie, being completely unable to work with these people is not going to be good for America. If you want to be sentient and prudent and so forth in government, you cannot just say, we have nothing to do with Wall Street. We hate Wall Street. We'll kill Wall Street every way we can, right?
Right.
Make him the issue.
Right. And and the thing too is just that what bothers me about all of this is that whether or not it's the email server, this Wall Street speech transcripts, the media has covered this to an extent, but I always think that if you flip that, if this had been a Republican, I think the situations would have been much different. I think the media would have pounded and would have hounded away and just made a bigger deal of it. I think the prosecution, you would have seen a vastly different result had it been somebody else besides Hillary Clinton. If there had been a Republican that had been guilty of doing all these things and was being as obstinate about Wall Street speeches, there'd be a very different outcome.
Yeah, she should just get it behind her. Just get it out there. Let them be read. It lasts. It's a 2-day bad news cycle. It's a lot more than 2 days till November. Just get it said. Bernie will have his attack ad, which he's already made without having seen them. So, what difference does it make? You're just leaving this pall that you're always hiding things. Just say, here's one where I didn't hide something.
Right. All right. So now on a cultural shift, talk a little bit, just briefly before we wrap up here, about the North Carolina bathroom law and the religious liberty law in Mississippi. That has attracted a lot of media attention for that, and we're seeing Bruce Springsteen, Bryan Adams, some others that are saying that they're going to pull out PayPal, so they're not going to expand jobs in North Carolina. Governor Dayton of Minnesota said to any employees of the state or to curb travel, non-essential travel to North Carolina.
Some others have done that.
Some others, yeah.
DC.
Yeah, right.
Which is good for the people of D.C.
Yeah, I don't. I guess Jimmy Buffett said he's still going to hold his concerts in North Carolina. I'm not sure what the economic outcome of this all will be, but this whole thing about this transgender thing, which is really what it seems to be focusing in on, whether or not it's Mississippi or North Carolina. People are getting all hot and bothered about this. We're making changes. People want demands. They want accommodation for 0.3% of the population. This makes no sense to me at all. It's one, the population of the LGBT community is about 3 to 4%, depending upon what state you live in, that kind of a thing like that. But at 0.3%, what they're demanding is outrageous. Is to make these changes. It's mind-boggling to me.
Where they have been offered, here's a third bathroom. They've said, no, that's singles me out. Okay. I don't know I think they need to find a way to get the yes on that. Okay, it's a competing rights thing. It's hard to know. Everyone wants to be right on this. No one wants to go have fights in the bathroom. Either way, right? But if you're offered the third bathroom and you have a problem with that, then I'm not sure that, I think there's something going on there beyond, you having a comfortable to you place to use the bathroom.
Well, you have young daughters, right?
I have an 11-year-old daughter.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean,
Yeah.
as a parent, I mean, this has got to be a little scary to you. If all they offer you is a male and a female bathroom, and males can go into the female bathroom. I mean, I have a daughter. I mean, she's grown and she's got her own kids. But as a grandfather, this worries me.
Yeah.
But I think a third bathroom. I believe that in L.A. their school district has approved a third bathroom or something like that. I can live with that. I mean,
plumbers all get rich.
Yeah, somebody will get rich on that. So I can live with that. Let's do our little sports wrap up here. I think at the end, Nationals doing well. Bryce Harper, 2 grand slams.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. The pitching looks good. Strasburg was strong. He usually hasn't pitched all that well against the Marlins. I mean, some things are clicking. They still don't have Ben Revere, and so you kind of wonder, well, what happens when he gets back, if he can make a difference at the top of the lineup. But they're looking good.
Yeah, and it's shaping up like we said. The Mets and the Nationals are pounding the other 3. They're playing. It's all intra-divisional so far, and the Mets are cleaning their clocks, and then the Nationals are cleaning their clocks, and then they're doing whatever amongst themselves. And the formula the Nationals can live with. Then it's just you and the Mets. Then they are. There's a lot of people are playing well, and I think we are just. And I said this at the end of last year when he won the MVP. We're just beginning to see what Bryce Harper's capable of.
Well, as the Washington Post article said yesterday, column was that the learners need to open up the checkbook and pay up now.
Yeah.
And I think that's completely true. Is that Harper is showing what he can do, and if they want to make him the cornerstone and for this career and have him here, they need to lock him up and pay him the big bucks.
He has said, my lifelong dream is to be a Yankee. So hopefully we can come up with another lifelong dream for him.
I agree with that. I do want you to just comment. I saw on Facebook you had gone to Wrigley.
I was in Wrigley Field on Saturday, right behind the visitor bullpen. Beautiful, like sun-splashed, cool day. One thing I found out, though, we stayed in Naperville, and we were like, how many coats to take, right? It is like 15 degrees colder at Wrigley. Most places like here, the city is warmer than the suburbs, but there the city is much colder. And I didn't realize that. My wife brought it up. It would have been a problem, but that's a great place to see baseball. It's just, it's an old cathedral. The grass is green, even though the ivy has not even started to green yet. And the game we were at, the Cubs played like the Cubs of yore. They threw the ball around the park and many errors and misplays of all kinds. But they are off to a real good start.
Yeah, I had to mention that only because I saw that, and I'm extremely jealous because Spencer and I have that on or at least on my bucket list of sorts to visit, and we're still trying to figure that out. We've done Yankee Stadium and we've done Fenway, but Wrigley is on our target there.
Well, worth your time.
Yeah, I want to be able to get out there and do that sometime. All right, so we're come to the close of another podcast here. Thank you, Brian, for joining me, and thank Spencer for Irvine as our studio engineer, and Stephen Irvine as our video engineer and post-production. Don't forget to like the AIM Facebook page. We're now, hopefully the broadcast on Facebook Live went well today, and also to follow us on Twitter. And we will join you again next week for another edition of The Bias Buzz.